Okay, for this little project, we're going to teach our computer to evaluate a problem like this, where we have a triangle, where we know all three sides, and we're trying to evaluate whether it's an acute, obtuse, or right triangle. If you don't remember how we did that, it's real simple. We ignore the 30 in the picture, and we do the Pythagorean theorem with the 18 and 22, and find out what the hypotenuse is supposed to be. If the 30 is, if it turns out to be 30, it's a right triangle. If the 30 is too big, it's obtuse. If the 30 is too small, it's acute. So how we're going to do that is going to look like this. We'll do it with a spreadsheet where I can type in the numbers 18 for one of the legs, 22 for the other leg, and the computer will spit out what the hypotenuse is supposed to be. But if we put in 30, that tells us that the hypotenuse in the picture was too big, and so the triangle's obtuse. It's also calculating what the hypotenuse was supposed to be. It was supposed to be 28.4. Obviously, the 30 is too big. That makes it obtuse. If we made the number too small, like 27, it'll change and tell us it's acute. And if we had it just right, like a standard right triangle, a 3, 4, 5, it'll tell us it's a right triangle. Now we're going to build this spreadsheet in our Schoology page. So to build this thing, go to Schoology. In our Schoology folder, there's a folder called Midterm Projects, and this is the Pythagorean Inequality spreadsheet. So you click on that, and it'll pop up a blank spreadsheet within Schoology, and you'll build the spreadsheet there. And the first thing you're going to want to do in the spreadsheet is set it up. You don't have to do the color scheme I have here. I have that so it's easier for you to follow on the video. But you're going to want to figure out what boxes are going to go where and then start to label them. We need 2 boxes that are going to be labeled with the leg, one with the hypotenuse, and one with what the hypotenuse is supposed to be. So the 3 that I have up here in yellow, this is where the user would put in the 3 measurements for the triangle, the 18, 22, and 30. And the red ones is where the computer answers back what it has calculated. So in one of the red boxes over here, I'm going to put in what the hypotenuse is supposed to be. So here I've labeled one spot where what h is supposed to be. The computer will calculate here in this box, B6 on my computer. And then in these other 3 red boxes here, and they don't have to be red on your screen, but it'll decide if the triangle is acute, obtuse, or right, and read out an answer. So the first thing we have to do is have the calculator, or spreadsheet in this case, figure out what the hypotenuse is supposed to be. So in the box, you're going to have to click on the box where you want that number to come up. So for me, that's going to be box B6. You can use the same boxes or change them around, but you got to be careful if you use different box names and numbers than me. All right, so in this box, I'm going to have the calculator figure out what the hypotenuse should be. So I click on the box, then I go up here to where you see this f of x, and I'm going to type my formula in there, and that's where we have to type it for the computer to know what to do. Now we're doing a calculation, so the first thing you have to do with the spreadsheet is start with an equal sign. That's how you tell the computer that you wanted to do a math problem for us. Now what we want to do is take the numbers in the first 2 yellow boxes, square them, add them together, and take the square root. There's no square root symbol on your keyboard, so we're going to have to use the computer symbol for square root, which is just SQRT. That's how the computer knows to take a square root, and then we're going to put the rest of the problem inside a set of parentheses, like this. Now, in those parentheses, inside the parentheses, we're going to say take the number that's whatever number has been put into box B3, so we can type B3 right there, and we're going to square it. There's no exponent key on your keyboard, so you have to use the little up arrow above the 6 called the caret, that little up arrow. So that's taking B3 and squaring it. You'll notice that when you've typed in box B3, that box is highlighted, so you know you've typed in the right name. It's telling you it's going to use this box for the calculation. Now we've squared that one box. We're going to actually square the other box where the other leg is. That's box D3. And we're going to raise that to the second power with a little plus sign between them. So now it's going to take whatever number is in box B3, square it. Whatever number is in box D3, square it, and add them together, and then take the square root. If you hit enter at this point, you should get a 0 popping up down here. And if we put some numbers in for the 2 legs, like 3 and 4, it'll tell us that the triangle is... the hypotenuse is supposed to be 5. You won't have anything written here yet. There we go. So it should look like this. So you should be able to get what the hypotenuse is supposed to be. At this point, we're halfway done. The second half of the problem is to get it to say whether the triangle is acute, obtuse, or right. So I'm going to keep the 3 and the 4 in for the legs here. And up here for the hypotenuse, I'm going to put 5. That's what I know that hypotenuse is supposed to be. And what I want one of these red boxes to do is say, ooh, that number in F3 is the same as that number in B6. These two match, so that's a right triangle. And I want that to pop up in my first red box here. That's box D5. So I'm going to highlight that box and go up to the formula up here. And I want to perform a calculation. And in this case, well, it's a calculation, so I'm going to start with an equals. But I only want to say right if the numbers match. So instead of just equals, it's going to be equals if. So it's only going to say something if something's true. And what has to be true is box F3 has to match B6. So if box F3 is equal to B6, I want it to do something. What I want it to do if these are equal is say that it's the right triangle. So after F3 equals B6, we have to put a comma, and then we want to say a word. So you have to put the words in quotes. If you do something else, it's going to think you're naming a box. So I have to put a quote and say right triangle. I'm just going to say right. Now, if it's not true, the default here, it'll automatically say false, like these two things aren't equal. That's false. So we have to say if it's not true, we want it to be blank. To do that, after the word right, if you end the quotes, we're going to put a comma and put a quote with a blank space in between. So if it's not true, it'll just print a blank space. So here my hypotenuse matches its calculation. It says right triangle, but if my hypotenuse is different, I'm going to change my 5 to a 6. Now it just spits out a blank space. So again, if this is the same, if box F3 matches B6, it says right triangle. Now, in the other two boxes, I want one of them to tell me it's acute if the yellow box F3 is too small, and obtuse if the yellow box is too big. It's pretty easy to do. We're going to take the exact same thing that we did in box D5, and we're just going to say, instead of saying if they're equal, if F3 is greater than, so you can use the greater than less than symbol, and we change our word to obtuse. And if F3 is too small, we use the less than symbol. We change the box to acute. That part we're going to leave for you to do and put those into boxes D6 and D7. And that part's going to be left for you to do, but in this case, if I make my hypotenuse too big, it switches and now it says obtuse. If I make the hypotenuse too small, it switches and says it's acute. Good luck.